Leah asked us to, Greg Crabtree actually, to do a webinar for a group of her clients, and we were talking and thought it would be a good idea to offer her expertise and her services in the IT cybersecurity world for our clients and friends of clients and whoever would like to join. So we are happy to be able to provide this webinar to you all. This is not a sales pitch or anything like that. We definitely didn't want it to be anything like that. We wanted to be informative, but as always, if you're interested in any services, please feel reach out to Leah at Intech Solutions, and they can definitely help you out with a wide range of IT and cybersecurity services. A little bit about Leah. She is the CEO of Intech Solutions, author of Cyber Warfare, Protecting Your Business from Total Annihilation, and the 3 indisputable rules every manufacturer must know before purchasing any IT product or service. As a cybersecurity advisor, Leah speaks frequently at venues and events such as Harvard, Pennsylvania State Department events, and accounting and manufacturing industry events. Also known as the IT Princess of Power, Leah saves mid-market firms from hackers and keeps them compliant by delivering enterprise-class IT security solutions that would otherwise be cost prohibitive. So I will let Leah take it from here. I hope you all enjoy, and look forward to a great period of learning.
There you go. Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike, for that fantastic introduction. So good afternoon, everyone. And I wanted to really thank you for taking the time with me today. I know that you're all very busy, and I don't want to take up too much of your time on IT issues because I know your #1 focus needs to be taking care of your clients and running your business. So I'm going to be as brief as possible, but I promise what I'm going to share with you today is extremely important, and it's things that you need to address. So I'm going to urge you to pay attention because there is immediate action required at the end of the session, and for those of you that want to protect your organization. As we move through, if you have questions, please do post that in the Q&A section. My assistant Veronica is also on the line, and she'll be monitoring the Q&A so we can be sure to answer any burning questions that you may have. But this is basically what we're going to cover today. So the first thing is we're talking about this one security threat to your business that antivirus, firewalls, and other security protocols cannot protect against. We're also going to cover the shocking truth about bank fraud that most businesses don't know that can actually wipe out your business bank account, and some simple steps to be able to protect yourself. We're also going to talk about one of the largest why firewalls and antivirus software are useless against these new threats happening today, and how mobile phones and cloud applications are seriously jeopardizing your organization's security and data protection, and what you need to do to protect yourself. Ultimately, what we're going to show you is how to avoid being a sitting duck to cyber criminals and protecting everything that you have worked so hard to achieve. Now, if you hang on to the end, we got a couple of free bonuses, because one of the things that's really important to me is to continue to add value to the community. So if you hang on to the end, each attendee will get for free a dark web scan, which will show you a list of personal credentials and employee credentials and passwords that are for sale right now on the dark web. That's whatever is out there for your organization right now. But you might be asking, well, who the heck is Leia Shilobod? I mean, Mike did a fantastic job of introducing me. But essentially, I'm a cybersecurity professional who specializes in helping companies to standardize and secure their IT infrastructure and processes for companies that have less than 3,000 endpoints. Now, I know that doesn't really sound very sexy, but the fact of the matter is that protecting your business so that you're able to grow, flourish, pay your employees, help your clients for years to come needs to start at very basic things. I founded Intech in 2006 because I wanted to save organizations from crappy IT support, unstable IT infrastructure, and deliver true security and peace of mind. I also work with the FBI on education about cybersecurity, and continuously meet with other security engineers across the country to learn more and more about new threats and how to protect against them. And as Mike mentioned, I have authored 2 books, one specifically for manufacturers about IT, and the other one I published last year, Cyber Warfare, which is a fantastic guide that is has been praised by both CEOs, IT departments, as well as my 69-year-old father, who said this was very accessible. So that made me really happy that it really helped him too. So really quickly, I want to talk to you about some other companies that we've helped. This is Colby Stewart, Bethlehem Communities. They are a mid-sized health organization. They have multiple sites and locations offering healthcare to the elderly. We help them with a lot of their security needs, so their firewalls, spam filtering, and web filtering. And Colby is the internal IT for that organization. And she says, you know, how we really offer the best value. You get what you pay for, and IT is one of your biggest assets. And making sure that it's not protected isn't a lesson that you want to learn the hard way. And Chad at the Westmoreland Chamber, we provide everything for them because they're a smaller organization. And he says, with all the hacking, spam, and phishing emails going on in the world, I get a sense of relief knowing that Intech has our back and is always looking to make sure our systems are safe for our staff and our members. With Intech, there is never a delay with service. They are right on top of it immediately. Let's be honest, computer systems have problems from time to time. Having someone to address those problems and do it quickly is what provides the value in the firm you choose. And Jim Gray at Tool Company is a manufacturer, and he says, thank you, Leia, and your team for doing a stellar job for us. Your team reacts to our situations very promptly and skillfully to assure our systems just work. The IT standards and alignments are like how we align with ISO standards and focus on continuous improvement. I can tell how passionate you are as a leader and how it reflects through your team. You guys have a great organization. So over the last year, there's been a significant increase in the sophistication, frequency, and severity of cyber attacks, and I'm going to be covering that in just a minute. And because of that, we've been watching trends and putting into place new technology, protocols, alignments, and standards to protect our clients. However, there are things that have worked even 3 years ago that are no longer really effective. The attacks are becoming more frequent, more vicious, they're carrying bigger consequences, and they're getting around older things that we used to have in place. So just to give you an idea about what that looks like in graphic form, this is the IC3's annual report. This was released obviously at the beginning of this year for the past 4 years. So IC3 is the Internet Crime Complaint Center. They receive complaints for a wide variety of different cyber incidents. If you ever are the victim of a cyber incident of any kind, you can go to the IC3's website and submit your information and data. It will be received by the FBI. In most cases, they don't do anything unless it's a big enough issue, but that they are able to pull together a lot of data on these incidents and then actually look for patterns, and it helps us all to figure out better ways to be able to stop the bad guys. As you can see here, the trend is obviously just increasing. And what I think is interesting is that the total losses just start to become exponential over time. So for the first time in history, cybercrime is now the most prevalent type of crime against businesses. There were 137.5 million new malware samples in 2018, and that number is growing, and they expect it to be higher here in 2019. And most of the malware that's being released is what they refer to as polymorphic, meaning that it has the ability to change its code and evade detection. And that's because of the advances in AI. I mean, AI does such wonderful things for us as consumers and in business. And of course, the crooks are leveraging that same kind of technology to make their malware smarter. anybody wonder what this number is? Well, I'll tell you. That's the additional damages and costs. So that's actually that is the amount of damages on average from a single cybersecurity incident. Now, obviously, that's taking into account very small firms as well as very large firms, but that is the average cost. Now, additional damages and costs that are not going to be included in that above number are things like embarrassment. Now, embarrassment is real. If anyone finds out that your organization was compromised, they're going to see you as stupid or irresponsible. There's also cost of protecting your employee and client data. In most states, you are responsible to buy credit monitoring for your staff if you have a cyber incident for at least 1 year. You also have reputational damage, loss of credibility in the marketplace. I mean, goodness, think about this. If your competitors heard that you guys were compromised, or you had data stolen, or you got ransomware, they'd have a heyday going to clients and prospects saying, hey, don't do business with this company. They're not secure. Your data's not safe with them. And that can, of course, cause you to lose clients. There's the possibility of class action lawsuits, individual lawsuits, and I'll actually talk about a case that destroyed a business later in the presentation. There's legal fees you have to pay to handle a breach, compliance fines if you are in industry that requires compliance, replacing that data that was corrupted or locked if you get it encrypted through ransomware, and really the real cost of downtime and lost productivity. Now, I know that some of you who are on the line today have actually done that calculation and know that for every minute or every hour that your site is down, how much you are actually losing. But most of us have not done that calculation and would be absolutely shocked about how much money you lose every hour that your team is not working. So you say, hey, Leia, if it's so freaking common, then why don't we hear more about it? That's easy. It's embarrassing to admit that you've been hacked. Many people honestly don't even know they've been hacked unless it's revealed in a security audit. In fact, the statistics show that it's been about 370 days after a foothold situation has happened that the organization learns that they've been compromised. That's over a year on average that organizations have been compromised and they have not known that. Also, you don't hear about it because could you imagine the horrible PR if clients, patients, vendors knew what information was accessed? And of course, legal ramifications. So most incidents stay hushed up. People often ask me, okay, I don't get it. Are there just like, pimply teenagers in a basement somewhere that are just trying to, wreak havoc? Why aren't these people using their powers for good? Well, I'll tell you what happened here, okay? The bottom line is they are criminals. And there will always be criminals. Throughout the course of human history, there have always been bad guys, and there always will be. In the old days, they used to get a knife or a gun and stick you up in the alley and say, give me all your money. And then as technology got better and we had trains, then robbers would get on a train because then you have 30, 40 people that you can rob all at once. It's extremely efficient. And if they have money for a fare on a train, they're going to probably have some other things with them too that would be valuable. Well, as time goes on, hackers, just like everyone else, want to leverage technology. And that's what they are doing now. They're leveraging technology to make money faster, easier, and we on the other side have to respond to this, or we're going to be sitting ducks. So remember the JP Morgan credit card hack? it wasn't just one person stealing a credit card. It was one person or a small group of people who stole tens of millions, they estimate 80 million people, personal credit cards, and 7 million small to mid-sized businesses in one fell swoop. Think about it. Never in the history of mankind has one person or small group of people been able to rob so many, so quickly, all at once. So some of you might recall the Equifax hack that happened a few years ago, and the huge uproar. I mean, people thought that Equifax was going to go out of business, but kind of like the big three auto manufacturers, apparently doesn't matter what you do and you end up staying around. However, what did they do with, what did the hackers do with this data? They opened credit cards in people's names. They took out loans in people's names. They stole tax refunds by filing returns in these people's names, and created highly targeted phishing attacks and scams, accessing bank accounts, emails, and computer networks. So if you understand, the only thing that was stolen really was just data, but that data is so valuable that they're able to leverage it to make real money. And then, of course, you know, we've got with Ashley Madison, you had over 400 million people's data stolen and was all exposed, some people who are actually very high profile. Now, look, I'm not the morality police, and I'm not the IT guy trying to keep, I'm just the IT guy trying to keep your data and your information safe. The fact of the matter is that when cyber criminals get a hold of this kind of information, they can use it for blackmail. You can receive a simple email in the, that says, you know, I do have this information about where you've been online and what organizations you've been engaging in, and I will send it out to, you know, I'll make it public if you don't pay me a certain amount of money. So what's motivating them? Money. This is a business. And not only is it a business, but it's a business with very little overhead, no taxes, and no problems that most legitimate businesses face. And today, the tools to be able to set up a hacker shop are so easily accessible. You can buy tools that will train you, services for committing fraud, hacking systems. You can buy stolen credit cards, set up fake websites. And just to give you an idea about how much on the dark web these kind of details go for, you know, it's very, very lucrative to sell information. One successful ransomware hit for a business is worth between $2,500 and $50,000 per incident, and that's just one incident. Even an amateur can expect to make $80,000 a month stealing and selling data. Now, I understand that some of you on the call right now are thinking, dang, I am in the wrong business. And no, you're not. You are on the good side. You are the ones that are actually keeping the economy rolling. And we want to protect you and give you this information so that you can continue to do that. So what's enabling them? First of all, it's an easy business. There are hundreds of websites out there so that this is easy to stand up. Malware programs run on autopilot. So if this is kind of like a set it and forget it kind of business, the proliferation of the Internet of Things, that's all those new devices and gadgets that you might think of in your home, like your Alexa, your Nest, all of those things are becoming connected in business. We also have sensors that we're using in our businesses to be able to gather and send data, and those are being leveraged by hackers. The FBI is completely overwhelmed with cases, so unless your incident is big, they're likely not going to pay much attention to you. And because of how the dark web is set up, it's nearly impossible to catch them, and there's no country borders. So what is the dark web? It's a separate hidden part of the internet that is unindexed, and so it's not part of the World Wide Web, the www part of the internet, the thing that when you open up your Chrome or internet browser, you cannot get to the dark web going that way. You have to actually use a special kind of browser to access the dark web. Cyber criminals use it because you can operate anonymously. And it's estimated that the dark web is actually about 550 times larger than the public web that you see, and that's just growing. I also hear this sometimes, and I want to address it right away. I hear, but we're small. Nobody would bother to hack us, right? Now, that's not true, because statistically, it shows that 1 in 5 small and mid-sized organizations falls victim to cybercrime each year, and that number is only growing. And that half of all cyber attacks are targeted at SMBs. But why? Well, first is that they're low-hanging fruit for hackers because most of them have pretty lax security. There's also laws that are safeguarding business bank accounts that aren't as strong, that hackers take advantage of. And small businesses don't typically encrypt their data, so it's readily available to sell behind an easy-to-pick lock. We just had a question. I want to stop for a minute. The question is, am I more secure if I stay away from the www part of the internet? No. And I would not recommend that anyone goes to the dark web unless you know what you're doing there. If anybody wants to talk offline about exactly what the dark web is or what happens there, I am willing to do that with you. Also, if you grab a copy of my book, Cyber Warfare, I also dive into the dark web in a very easily accessible description of what's there and what goes on. But stealing money really isn't the only motivation. Not only can they quickly sell stolen data, they can use your server or your email service for sending spam emails or phishing emails. We see this a lot. They can use your systems for processing stolen credit cards, laundering money, for hosting illegal software and content, or they can use your business's machines as coin miners to make extra cryptocurrency. Some of them are really in for fun or bragging rights. That happens too. I see ideology issues, like if they feel that your company is doing something that they don't agree with, you'll have like hacktivist groups that try to shut you down. And then also espionage. They steal secrets, intellectual property, confidential information, and sell it to competitors. Now, what if your clients or patient find out how casual you are being about keeping their personal information safe? You know, how do you think they just shrug it off? You know, think about all of the information that you store on your system. Truly, the biggest danger of all really is your complacency. Do not underestimate the importance of addressing and protecting yourself from these threats. So the 3 biggest threats to your organization right now and how to stop them. The first, let's see, how many people will guess this? It's your employees. Now you say, Leia, I have great employees. They love working here. They're good people. But you know what? Even good people make mistakes. They delete files. They click on that phishing email because they think that your CEO wants you to go out and get iTunes gift cards, and now they've gotten $1,000 worth of iTunes gift cards and get that information onto a hacker. Maybe they innocently log on to a Facebook page or another page and put their credentials in there, and it actually was fake, and now a hacker has their usernames and passwords. They also aren't as security conscious as maybe you are, so they oftentimes use free and unsecured file sharing applications. You'd be surprised at the number of employees that are doing that in a good-natured sense because they feel like they want to be more productive and perhaps do work at home or from anywhere. We require all of the companies that we work with and engage with at a certain level to have all of their employees go through cybersecurity training. And during that, we talk about specifically where employees are allowed to save information, where they're not allowed to save it, where they are allowed to save it, and how they're allowed to share it and who they're allowed to share it with. And every single time I do this presentation, we have people saying, oh, so you're saying I'm not supposed to be using my personal Dropbox and putting stuff in there to work from home. Oh, I'm not supposed to be using, my Google Drive so that I've been actually using that though to share with this client. And I see CEOs, managers, supervisors, jaws hit the table where they think, holy cow, where is my data? Where is it? And what's going on? So more people are also using their personal devices for work. So they're bringing them into the office and maybe they're connecting them to your system. And they do not, underscore, no way, do not have the same level of security and protection on those personal devices that you have on your network. But when they bring it inside and they plug it into your local area network, that now has the same, they can go through the network and infect it with whatever happens to be on that device. Also, do not underestimate disgruntled employees or vendors. If you fired somebody, whether it's a vendor or whether it is an employee, they can be a huge threat since they often have direct access to most of your information. We have personally seen, especially salespeople or people in key positions that either felt like they might get fired or going to leave the company soon, and so saved away a lot of important company data, intellectual property, client databases, all sorts of things like that to take to the competitor that they were going to go to next. Also, believe it or not, vendors can get really ticked off if you fire them or if you decide not to do business with them. I have a couple of interesting stories about that. Actually, a dear friend of mine had engaged a web provider to design a website for them, and they were just getting nowhere with this website. I know this never happened to anyone before, right? So they decided to fire the vendor. They were smart enough to go onto the host, it was HostGator, and delete the access for that vendor that they just fired. Well, apparently there was a glitch in the HostGator, so that vendor was still able to log in, and they deleted websites. Like, they had e-commerce sites because this is like how their business worked with an e-commerce platform, and the guy wiped out all the e-commerce sites. Now, HostGator doesn't back up those websites. Luckily, my friend did have backups themselves, so they were only down for a couple of hours when that was being restored. The HostGator was just like, really, so sorry, you're kind of screwed. There was no help and recourse there for her whatsoever. Also, I have heard in the industry on more than one occasion, and there was an issue, like it was in the news, I think last year, of an IT company down in Georgia who was working with a chamber of commerce, and they wanted to fire them. And the IT company said, well, you can do that if you'd like to, but we're not turning over your Office 365 account. We're keeping the username and password, and sorry, you got to pay us all this money, the rest of the money for your contract, which I think was like $20,000, if you want to get access to your data, your email, your SharePoint, your everything. And they held it hostage. It was in the news. They had to file a lawsuit. It was really, really, really ugly. But that happens more often than you would be. You'd be surprised. The other thing we just mentioned, actually, shadow IT. That's when your well-meaning employees have data on all kinds of cloud apps. We're referring to them as rogue. Employees would not call them rogue. They'd say, hey, I'm just trying to help you out. I'm trying to do this to work from home. But do you even know what they're using and where your data is? So Mike actually asked, is it better to have your data in the cloud and managed by a cloud hosting provider or have on-site servers? That's a really great question, Mike. The answer is definitely going to depend on what your business processes are. Every company is different, and there's not a one-size-fits-all solution there. It's going to depend on what makes the most sense for your business processes, who has to access the data, how often, where they're going to be located, how open you want the access to be, or how closed down you want the access to be. Neither one is more secure. And if that is the other question that you would ask, so cloud or on-premises, neither is more secure. It's going to be how it's configured that's going to determine whether or not it's secure. You can have something completely wide open that's on premises and completely wide open that's also in the cloud. Unsecured mobile devices. All right, so how many of you have mobile phones? Okay, I know everyone's like, yeah, of course I have a mobile phone. How can you exist without a mobile phone? How many of you use them to access your company email? Everyone on this call does. Regrettably, I know, but you all do. How many of you allow your employees to access that information from their mobile devices? Is it a corporate phone that you control, or is it their personal phone? When they leave, how can you be sure that they're not walking out of the door with this little computer in their hand that has all kinds of company information on it still? Does the email service that you connect to enforce a password on those devices? And is there any way, if an employee goes rogue and you can't even get a hold of them to delete the information they have on this thing, is there a kill switch or any way to be able to lock the device or remove that data if that ever happens? Because I'm telling you, mobile is one of the places that not only malware, but data loss and leakage is really growing the fastest amount. So remember earlier I mentioned about what happens when you decide to fire a vendor or not use a vendor? So this fellow right here, Michael Dougherty, he's a nice, good-natured man. Michael owned a company down in Atlanta called LabMD. It was a small business. They had about 30 employees and $4 million in annual sales. And what happened to him is that one of his employees violated their IT policy and installed a music streaming software called LimeWire, and most of us have heard of that in the past, on her computer. Now, what LimeWire does is it actually does peer-to-peer sharing. So it's not like a Spotify that is a legit service that you're paying for and just streaming some music, but it actually makes your computer a node on this peer-to-peer network so other people can connect to your computer. Now, on that employee's computer was a folder, and in that folder was social security numbers and PHI for more than 9,000 patients. So what happened is that there happened to be this IT security company called Tyversa, and Tyversa, it was an investigative service, and they tried to identify the source and severity of breaches. Well, they actually actively went out there looking for things like this. They found that folder on this woman's computer, and so they contacted Michael and they said, hey, you know, you have a breach, so I would like you to engage us and we will search the whole web and we'll make sure that it's not anywhere else. Michael was pretty certain that like it was only on this one computer and then it had not leaked anywhere. They had an IT team, they shut it all down, they checked everywhere, they were certain that it wasn't anywhere. Well, after several times of the CEO of Tyversa, his last name was Bobak, after he tried to talk to Michael Dougherty several times, please use my company, please use my company. They wanted to charge him like $38,000, and he was like, we're fine. Well, eventually he turned them into the FTC, which caused an FBI incident, and he ended up spending over $200,000 trying to mitigate all of this, had to close the door of the business. All 30 employees lost their jobs. And all of it was because that vendor was ticked off that he didn't choose him to try to mitigate this risk. And so he went to that length. There are people out there like that, and we need to protect against them. Second biggest risk is malware and ransomware. So for those that ask questions like, what is malware? What is ransomware? Well, malware comes from the Latin word mal, meaning bad. So any kind of software that is bad, that has a mal intent, a bad intent. Ransomware is the software that has the bad intent of encrypting your files and holding them for ransom. And why? Well, because it's rather profitable when all of your data is encrypted and you can't access it, for someone to come along and say, well, I'll unlock that for you and you can get all your valuable data back for a price. So there was once, I love this quote, a writer once asked a literary agent, what kind of writing pays the most? Her answer was simple, ransom notes. Cute, but it's pretty accurate. So ransomware is on the rise. People often ask me about why we saw cryptocurrencies value shoot through the roof in recent years, and that was all over the news for some time. Well, the true reason why cryptocurrencies value actually increased so quickly is because of the proliferation of ransomware, because you couldn't write a check and send it to the criminals, and you couldn't give them your credit card. You had to send them Bitcoin or some other kind of cryptocurrency. And because it was being so heavily leveraged in the crime community, then just like the law of supply and demand, the value of it increased greatly. So 300 Bitcoin could have, initially been a couple $1,000s, and that ended up being, $13,000 or $38,000 during certain spikes of that market. Malware on smartphones is also increasing, especially because people have so much data on there and they're using them for financial transactions. So, the fact of the matter is, everybody, I'm going to tell you this right now. I know that there is a deep line in the world between those that like Android-based phones and those that like iPhones, but I'm going to tell you as an IT business owner and a security professional, I absolutely, from a security perspective, recommend that you use the iPhone. And the reason is because their platform is more locked down than the Android platform. Basically, anyone can write a little app and put it on the Google Play Store, and anyone can download that app. Now, in iPhones on the App Store, you have to go through a very rigorous process to get your app approved for it to be published. And they make you jump through tons of hoops. And while it's a pain in the butt for people who are developing apps, it actually makes consumers and businesses safer. So I appreciate how hard that is, because it allows everyone to be safer. Now, one of the things that I like to tell people when they're like, I don't understand. So, okay, if you're a hacker and you want to get on a bunch of devices really quickly, all you do, and you can actually buy a little piece of software and write a really quick app, and then you upload it to the Google Play Store. And then unsuspecting people are looking for maybe, like, let's say a flashlight app. Okay, flashlight app. Oh, okay, here's one right here. And there's probably like hundreds of them. But you just click on one and you download it to your phone. And then what does it ask? It says, the app would like you to share your location, it would like access to your contacts, and it would like access to your text messages. And most people are like, okay, sure, whatever, okay. Well, let me tell you something, guys. Your flashlight app does not have to know who your contacts are. Also, your flashlight app does not have to know your location. You know where you are. You're in the dark. That's why you need a flashlight app. So Jed Smith asks, what can I do to make sure my cloud company is secure? How do I know about their configuration? That is a really, really good question. I am glad that you asked that. So that is, in my other presentation that I do, I talk about how a lot of vendors fly under the radar. This is going to be accounting and CPA firms that you let into your network. This is going to be IT firms. Do not underestimate that they are, do not just think that they are keeping themselves secure. Oftentimes, IT vendors are the, cobbler has, kids have no shoes. They are not even practicing the same security best practices that they are telling you to do. We're talking about your cloud vendors, your hosted providers, whether it's for email, your vertical application, your files. They're often flying under the radar. You're not thinking about them because your stuff is now somewhere else and you've kind of abdicated that. Thought, okay, well, they're taking care of it, and you can't. You cannot abdicate the need for cybersecurity off to other people. You need to demand to see things like, what are your IT policies? I actually I'm going to provide you with a document later that will help you to determine, at least with your IT provider, what kind of security best practices they have in place. You can use something similar when you're discussing things with your other vendors, and all major cloud application providers should have a statement on their website describing their practices. And I always ask every single time I vet a security vendor, anyone that we're going to use, I ask, and they're like, oh yeah, so we're in a redundant data center and everything is 256 encrypted. I mean, they act that way, but I will always ask. I ask for written documentation and I keep it on file. That was a great question, Jed. So basically, cyber criminals are scum and they know no boundaries. Don't underestimate them. Government fines are also escalating for businesses. It's possible that you're in an industry that has compliance requirements, and if you're not meeting them, or if you get breached, you can be slapped with all kinds of fines. And most states have so all states have some kind of data breach law of some sort. And in most states, it says that personal information, which is protected under these laws, could be as simple as a person's first name, first initial and last name in combination, a driver's license number, social security number, any information including logins and passwords. So you are responsible for that data, and if it leaks, then you are in breach of law. The third rising threat to businesses is bank fraud. But most organizations don't realize is that the FDIC does not protect you from bank fraud. And the bank is not responsible for getting your money back if it's stolen. Now, there's a difference here. And when bankers are in the audience, they are so happy when I say this, because I say banks are blaming their customers and you're screwed. And like the bankers are first like, whoa, where's she going with this? And then I explain, if you have a credit card, right? If you have an American Express, Visa, MasterCard, Discover card, those are protected if you have a credit card transaction. But if you have a point of sale transaction, that's a debit transaction, if you have an ACH transaction, or if you have a wire transaction, that is not protected. So if for some reason somebody gets your bank information and funds are wired out of your account, even if somebody calls and tricks your banker into wiring out of the account, only if you can prove that it was your bank's fault is the only way that you will be safe and be able to get that money back. Most of us hopefully on the call have heard of Vern Harnish before. Vern Harnish, he actually founded the Entrepreneurs Organization. He founded Gazelle's Growth Institute, and his company, Gazelle's Inc., provides executive education and strategic planning for businesses. I actually had the opportunity to meet Vern on several occasions. He's an amazing guy, and we actually engage an organization to help us with business coaching that is along the Rockefeller habits. And even Vern was breached, and this is when he was out of the country, and while he was working on his laptop, through the Wi-Fi he was connected to, it was intercepted through a man-in-the-middle attack, which basically means they got on his computer and started to communicate back and forth as him through his computer, and $400,000 was stolen from his bank account. So banks are prevailing in these cyber cases because they have laws that protect them. So if you decide that you are going to engage in online banking, you bear the responsibility of that privilege to have online access to your money. And if your computer is compromised and you log on to the bank system, and because of a compromise on your computer, money is taken out of your account, then you're liable and the bank is not. So I have so many stories that I could tell you about cybercrime and money being stolen. One of them actually, it was similar to the one that Vern Harnish had, except in this case, it was a client of mine who was working with an overseas vendor because their manufacturer of their product was in China. And the Chinese manufacturer had been emailing them from one address for some time, and that vendor's email account was compromised. Somewhere along the way, the hacker emails my client and says, oh, by the way, we're moving over to this new email address, and move them over to the new email address, and keeps communicating back and forth with him for some time, and eventually tells him for the next order that he wants to place, they're changing their bank details, and provides my client with new bank information. Now, when you send money overseas, you wire it. So he wired $13,000 for their next order to the hacker. That money was gone. And there wasn't anything we could do about it, because not only are we talking about an organization in China, but in China, because of how everything works in their country, they tend to not use corporate email, but actually use free email that's kind of equivalent to our Gmail. It's a very, very different setup over there. So there was absolutely zero we can do. We did report to the FBI. The FBI came in and did do a little bit of investigation, but in the end, they lost all of that money. In another more recent incident, one of our clients in accounting, they received an email that looked like it was from the CEO, and it was requesting for $25,000 check to be sent to a new vendor across the country. And the accounting person actually pushed back and said, no, that's not our process. I need, you know, the vendor's information. I need a PO. I need this information to be able to process properly. And then the CEO pushed back and said, I'm really, really busy. This really needs to get processed today. So please just go ahead and do it, and I will get you that information tomorrow. Well, this accounting person was afraid for their job. We have this high-powered, super busy CEO. We have none of them on this call, I'm sure, that wants everything right now. So she felt that, well, maybe he's just asking me to bend the rules because he's super busy. So she cut a check and sent it to that vendor over across the country. The next day, when she didn't receive the information she needed from the CEO, she reached out to him, and he's like, that wasn't me, and was really kind of ticked off that she cut a check and sent it across the country. Luckily, though, it was a check, so they got to stop payment because it was caught in time. That's just two of many, many, many stories that I've got in my vast knowledge base. So if, and I should say when, your business falls victim to a cyber attack, because I'm telling you, your business is going to fall victim to a cyber attack, or it already has, and you're going to fall victim again. Depending on what happens, you're going to be blamed. There's no sympathy for businesses that get hacked. You're going to wrongly be labeled irresponsible and stupid. You may be questioned, investigated. What did you do to prevent this from happening? You may need to notify your clients. It might end up in the news, and you're going to end up having to pay for costs to restore data, and work can quickly escalate. So how do you protect yourself? You know, back in the old days, we used to say, okay, let's get you a firewall, let's get you some antivirus, and you're going to be just fine. And we know now from everything I've talked about that's just not going to do it. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to have some kind of a threat assessment. So understand the current state of your computer systems, your network, your cloud vendors, and then understand where the gaps are. What's lacking in the security? What are your systems actually truly backed up? And where are you exposed to risk? The second is that when you have all that information, to actually create an action plan and implement it. We have a really cute acronym for that. We call it a POAM. It's a plan of action and milestones, where you're actually writing down where all the gaps are based on what has been discovered, who's going to be responsible for taking care of it, how much is it going to cost your organization, and then when is it going to be changed or implemented. In fact, I highly recommend that your organization always maintain a POAM, because your computer systems change all the time. You get new equipment, you do updates to software, you choose new vendors. And so this is not a point in time thing, which is step 3, right? You need some kind of ongoing consulting and maintenance. You can't take a set it and forget it kind of approach to security and to your systems, because attackers certainly are not. As I demonstrated today, they're consistently changing what they're doing to get around everything you're doing. That's why you have to maintain a POAM. So if you don't have a really good relationship with whoever is doing your IT right now, you need to find somebody who you trust, who can provide these things for you. So because Mike did the wonderful thing of allowing me to talk to you and deliver all this information today, I promised him that everything I do for you today will be absolutely free. So the first thing that I'm offering everyone who's on this call today, who actually there's only a couple of these that I can do, is a threat assessment and a dark web scan. So when we do this risk assessment or threat assessment for you, I'll be able to tell you if your employees' login credentials are being stolen on the dark web. I'll be able to tell you if your IT systems and data are truly secured from hackers and cyber criminals, rogue employees, and lost. P.S. It's not truly secure. But there's a lot of things that you can do to get as secure as possible. I'll also provide you with a health score for your network to determine areas that are outdated, unsupported, slow, problematic, and kind of give you an idea based on industry best standards where your network falls. Also, it could tell you if your current backup would allow you to restore 100% of your data and be up and running again fast if ransomware lost all your files. Now, I want to tell you that a very good dear friend of mine had an incident at one of their clients. They were not able to restore the way that they said they were supposed to be able to for several different reasons, including the fact that the ransomware encrypted the backup. So it's great to have a backup, but if it's encrypted too, there is nothing to be able to restore from. Also, so I'm going to provide you with a free dark web scan. And you guys are going to love this. I put together a simple guide for hacker-proof passwords that I'm going to give you for absolutely free. Please share this with everyone in your organization, and please have them change their passwords, because I can absolutely assure you that you have people in your organization that have the crappiest, easiest to hack passwords that there are. And finally, I'm going to give you the questions you should ask any IT expert before letting them touch your network. And this is a checklist. You can use it for IT experts. You can also use it as talking points with any of your other vendors who would have access to your systems, and also with any cloud vendors. So the 3 things you need to know about this is, first, there's absolutely no obligation to buy or do anything when you request the risk assessment. Unfortunately, though, I can only extend this to 7 people this month because of the amount of time that is required. But I promised Mike that I would provide massive value on this. if you go through a risk assessment, I provide you with the report, you are more than welcome to give it to whomever is doing your IT right now or your internal IT and say, fix these things. This is also by application only because I want to make sure that I can actually help you before we book this consultation. So we created this really, really quick little application survey on SurveyMonkey, and my lovely assistant Veronica just posted that on the chat. So that way we can make sure that we will actually be able to help you. I don't want to waste your time, and certainly if we can only do 7 this month, then there's only, I want to make sure that everyone's getting the most bang for the time that this is required here. So don't think about putting it off. It can and will happen to you. Go here now and apply. I know that while you're filling that out, we've got a couple of questions. Jed, who's full of great questions today, asks, is there something the government lists as a best practice? That's a great question. So the government, through an organization called NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, puts out many special publications throughout the year, and they update those on a regular basis. We actually use one of them, actually right here. It's called, it's NIST Special Publication 800-171, Protecting Controlled and Classified Information in Non-Federal Systems and Organizations. So we use this for our clients that have certain requirements when they're in the Department of Defense supply chain. But this document has really, really consolidated what we all believe to be truly best practices that we use this to kind of align everybody with. And you can, if you just Google NIST 800-171, it's a free download publication, so you can grab yourself a copy if you'd like to. And that's all the questions right now. So.
Hey, Leia, I just wanted to say something before you take off here. Really appreciate your time. I thought this was great, and I want to say to everyone listening, prior to meeting Leia, we had a security assessment done by a company that came in, and it was really an eye-opening experience from this standpoint. We were doing a lot of things right, but there were several small tweaks, especially for a small business, that we were able to make that really made you feel good about getting it done, and things that you just didn't even think about in terms of, permissions on a lot of files and systems to, more robust two-factor authentication across the board. Very simple and easy to add in fixes and added security that you don't always think about. And even though it's always at the forefront of our mind at our firm, still you're just not thinking of everything until a company that comes in and actually is real experienced in that space and knows what to look for. And we got procedures, recommended procedures that we can look at. We had they actually did like some fake emails to try to catch employees and send them to training and stuff. But then they came in and did training similar to what Leia just did. But just like a couple hours, same concepts that went over all of those phishing and whaling and all that other stuff that's out there. But honestly, it's amazing all the small things you can do to make yourself that much more secure by having, one of those assessments done and really figuring out where some of those leaky spots are.
Thank you. That is so true, Mike. So true. And it does take like truly a team in order to beat a crook, and having everyone on the same side of the table so that we get to the end result that we're all looking for, which are secure companies that don't get hacked. Really quickly, I have two last questions. How do you truly safeguard bank accounts? So that's an interesting question, and it's kind of multi-layered and very difficult to answer quickly. There are some best practices, like for instance, I would recommend that most of us have some kind of monthly recurring expenses. I recommend that you have a specific credit card, one, that you use on all of those online accounts because those get compromised a lot. A different credit card for, people for when they travel, so that if that gets compromised, it doesn't ruin everything else. Don't give direct access to your bank accounts unless you absolutely have to. Have one specific account that you wire out of. Make sure that the bank that you choose really does have good banking practices. Most of them do. Some of them I think are a little bit better than others. Make sure that you access online accounts through a separate computer. Recommend actually a Chromebook because there's a lot less malware being written for Chromebooks than there are for, say, Windows or Apple devices, and only access bank accounts online through that device. That's just a couple of things I can throw out there really quickly, but there are many things to do. Somebody asked if they're not one of the 7 applicants to get the full assessment, can we still download the ebook type access? So what I am going to do for everybody on the call, because I really truly believe that this is very important information that everyone should have. You have to remember 500 zillion passwords anyway as it is. And if I can teach you how to create one that is secure, I'm doing the world a service. So when we do a follow-up email for the posting of this online for anyone that wants to review it again, and also for people that missed it, I'll make sure that there are some download links available for those ebooks. Good question, Chris. All right, well, I want to thank everybody for joining me today. And I know from the questions that you guys are concerned about this, and I have full belief that you're going to take the information today and fortify your companies. So on that, I'm signing off. Don't forget the survey link to be able to sign up for your risk assessment, and stay secure out there, guys.